Hello, everybody, and welcome to the new season of PonderVision. That feels weird because it's only been 2 weeks, but it's technically true.
Yeah, it works.
I'm Charlie, as always, and joining me is...
Ash.
And we are here, like before, to talk about every single entry and new discussion point for the MCU. This is a fun one because we started off PonderVision as kind of like a way to talk about WandaVision itself, and now I think we're just going to go riding the MCU train.
Which is kind of what I figured would happen. I was like, yeah, if like we enjoy talking about WandaVision so much, I imagine 2 weeks later we're going to be like, yeah, I want to talk about Falcon and Winter Soldier.
I mean, come on, there's a drone that's called Red. Of course we're going to watch it.
You have to.
I mean, you've got to. But yeah, it's great to be back. Great to be able to dive into new content.
It's been so long. We were deprived of MCU content for so long.
I weeped for a week. I could only console myself with the brand new 1 hour documentary, behind the scenes documentary of WandaVision to keep me from laying awake at night crying. But yeah, I think before we get started, I'm just going to tweet that we're live because that'd be a great idea. There we go. Well, first of all, it's not just us this week. We've got a special guest who is a dear friend of mine. He's one of the most funniest people I know. Hey, Reed.
Hello. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me on.
Look at your patriotic little hat there.
Yes, there's a story behind this hat, actually. In high school, we kind of had this thing that was sort of like a talent show. We called it Coffee House. And I was in a band called Free and Direct Discourse because we were entirely like making fun of Jane Austen because we were all reading Jane Austen at that point in high school. And so that the music that we played had nothing to do with Jane Austen. Just the name was like an FU to our English teacher because we all hated talking about it. But anyhow, I was the front man. And so I had this hat and a great vest. And yeah, I don't even remember all the lyrics, but I sort of pseudo rapped to it. And so one of the lines, the opening lines, Washington, Jefferson, Madison, Monroe, all of them presidents, and the whole band, none of them skank hoes, like, you know. And so
incredible.
This hat has memories.
I would comment on the name, but I played in several punk bands in high school that had way stupider names than that. So
it's what high school is for. They have bands with awful names, but I'm glad I could break it out for this. I wanted something red, white, and blue, since there's a lot of red, white, and blue in the show.
Because obviously the show is about the whole universe of Captain America, but I was like, is this supposed to do with American, or is this like a nice little nod? Because it's very French. I was like, is that a nod to our beloved Batroc the Leaper?
He showed up, and I had once again forgotten that Batroc the Leaper was going to be in the show, even though we had a conversation about it 3 weeks ago. I was like, oh my god.
I mean, all right.
I confused him briefly with Strucker, thinking that Batroc died in jail, and so I was like, "What is this supposed to be? Yeah. Is this supposed to be a prequel scene right here? I thought this guy was dead." And then the clues about what Sam was wearing and having Red Wing and all that jazz. Like, that's right. No, he didn't die. That was Strucker who died.
The other bald guy in the MCU.
The other bald guy, European bald guy, mind you.
We could go into depth about how they did dirty with Von Strucker, but now is not the time. Let's just like you said, let's just dive in because this is what we're here for. We're here to just spout nonsense. We start off, like you said, we got a mission with Sam. We're introduced to Sam Wilson, aka Falcon, one of my favorite characters, obviously in the Captain America movies, and I feel like it's been long overdue to have some focus on. We get to see him now. He's part of the military. Then obviously the Avengers aren't up to much. I guess they want a little break for a few months.
Their entire compound got destroyed.
Good point. Yeah, it's not really a nice place to stay, I would imagine.
I imagine they just kind of heard about Wanda doing something and were like, I'm not dealing with that.
Yeah, no, right. That's why he was in North Africa at the time, It's like there's shit going down in New Jersey. Oh, what's happening in Libya though? That sounds nice. Tunisia, right?
Wait, Wanda's doing what?
He's like, I'm not suited for this. Like,
it seems like y'all have a handle on that.
Yeah, the reason he was having tea with his colleague in Tunisia was because he was waiting for the go-ahead that the Wanda stuff was done. And as soon as that was done, I was like, oh yeah, I gotta go to Washington right now. Because he pops out of that table so fast. And it's like somebody's feeding him what's going on. They're like, oh, Wanda's gone? Oh, okay. We don't know where she is. Do I have to find her? No, yeah, I know. You shouldn't want me. I didn't find the Winter Soldier when you wanted me to, so there's no way I'm going to be able to find her. So.
I imagine he's just getting calls from the U.S. government, like, "Hey, Wilson, can you come deal with this thing?" He's like, "I don't know. Sorry, the connection's bad. I can't hear you."
There's a flying squirrel Frenchman I have to go take care of. So
I do like the idea of like Sam gets called by the government to deal with Wanda because they've been Avengers for 2+ years and have a deep connection, and he's like, "I can't be dealing with this. I'll contact Ant-Man." And then Ant-Man's like, I'll contact the FBI. And that's why Jimmy ends up getting involved.
Oh, I love that. That 100% makes sense.
I've been thinking a lot lately, just because I've been thinking about WandaVision a lot. This image I got in my head of like Wanda gets her kids back, then rolls up to the next Avengers gathering 2 years later or whatever with her like 12-year-old kids. And everyone's like, what? She's like, I don't know either. Just go with it.
Like, you were dead for 5 years. Your husband's dead.
I
like the idea of like Vision in the corner having a drink. It immediately reminded me
Vision also is there, and they're just like,
yeah.
It reminded me of, I don't know if you've ever watched the Robot Chicken DC specials.
I love those so much. They're so funny.
That one bit where Batman's doing a eulogy for the Green Arrow, and he like just stops and like, screw this. He goes, there's no point for this because we all know that he's going to come back at some point. And in the
they're like, we're at so-and-so's like funeral last week or something.
And it's like, who here has already died? And it's like everyone's putting their hands up, and then like really sheepishly, so Superman's like, me too. But my favorite part about it is that in the back row, Green Arrow's at his own funeral. He's like, this is great. That's the sort of like thing I get from the whole Vision situation where he's like, yeah, I know. That happened. We're like, okay, we'll just deal with it.
Vision's like, I could explain it to you if you really want, but like, there's world-ending things happening.
No, he walks up to someone and, have you heard of the ship of Theseus? Like, get out of here, you dork.
Like, what are you talking about? Whose ship's that? Yeah, so we start off, obviously, Sam is with the military now. He's doing missions for them. And like Captain America, the Winter Soldier, how that starts off with a vehicle being hijacked by Batroc the Leaper, who works for...
He has one niche. He sticks to it. That's his one. You need a vehicle hijacked and hostages taken. You call Batroc the Leaper.
I'm trying to remember what the name of the terrorist group was. Was it LAF?
It was LAF, because at first I thought they were talking about LAX, the airport.
Yeah.
I thought that's a weird one, but yeah, so I think it is LAF. Did they spell out the acronym?
I think I know what it means.
What do you think?
I'm really
all.
Leaping angry Frenchman. I really hope that's the case. I was like,
that's so good.
Mon ami.
I was like fully prepared for you to pull out some like obscure comics knowledge that I know nothing about because I don't read Captain America comics. And you're like, nope, leaping angry Frenchman.
Well, one thing that did escape my mind, because it's been a few years. It's weird to think that actually it's been a few years since Sam became Cap in the comics, because it still kind of feels like that just happened. But obviously, that was like way back when now. But Torres, the cool dude who I think we all like immediately saw him. We're like, okay, we like this dude.
Yeah.
He's actually the second Falcon. Oh, not the second, but like he's actually the Falcon in the comics. He becomes the Falcon.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, so that was a cool little like. Is that what they're team? Because I was like, it's cool to have like a little psychic character. So I was like, is that in the comics or not? And then I was like, oh, okay. Well, yeah. Well, now we know that. I think it's like, because I know Sam's the Falcon again now, but I think that he's also technically the Falcon. Probably like a Spider-Man deal. which was I thought it was pretty cool. I like the idea of them maybe like teaming up a different sort of varying cast members. Maybe like if there was a sequel to the series, there could be like a few more characters hanging out, beating up French people.
Only the French.
That's how you know America has fallen. They helped us at Yorktown, and now here we are beating them up. What a travesty. The Marquis de Lafayette did not tour the United States in 1792 to be treated like this.
I mean, you know, I think France was pretty bummed out, to be fair, in their involvement in the War of Independence. Like, why are we doing this? We're poor. Not to get historical on everyone. But yeah, like I just think it's really cool that we got this really great action set piece to sort of kickstart off this new show, sort of differentiate the tone of what we're getting compared to WandaVision.
It also really hit. You know, you forget sometimes that the MCU is funded by the Department of Defense. By that opening scene, I was like, brought to you by the United States military.
Hell yeah!
Which I have a lot of complicated feelings about, but we'll get into that later. But
yeah. It was interesting actually seeing the responses to the episodes because I was getting kind of like frustrated, but I was like, I do appreciate why people were getting angry. And when I say angry, I'm not like their worries and feelings are unfounded. It's more so that I've been watching interviews with Malcolm Spellman, the writer, who kind of made me feel a little bit more at ease. Of course, there's obviously the big grating element, like they had the premiere at the fucking Air Force. Even though they're like, oh,
the thing that really bothers me in general about the MCU is whenever you use military equipment in a movie, the Department of Defense will pay for it, but in return, you have to follow very, very strict guidelines on how you portray the military in your movie, and the military will then use that as a recruitment tactic. Right. And to give you a little background on why I feel so strongly about this, I joined the Air Force when I was 17 and an idiot and was treated very terribly. I won't get into all the things that happened, but very bad things happened. And I was kind of misled in my recruitment process, and pretty much everybody is misled. So I am uncomfortable with the idea of, like, I remember when Captain Marvel came out, I saw ads for the Air Force that was like, become a female pilot. Right. Look at this woman who's an Air Force pilot. That stuff is the stuff that makes me very uncomfortable. Regardless of where the story goes, because because they're so tied with the U.S. military, they can't portray the U.S. military in like a very negative way, because again, they have to follow these really strict guidelines. So that's just like, I can understand that, like, if the story doesn't go in that direction, but it still makes me and a lot of people uncomfortable.
No, that's valid.
Just for a little like context, you know.
Oh no! Thank you for sharing. I think one thing that Marvel tries to do to get around this is like the villain is rarely the military guy. You know, they're just these are the good old boy soldiers doing their job. They love the heroes. It's always a bureaucrat's fault. Like when you want to highlight,
it's always a private sector. Like
it's a private Iron Man 2. Like the military is so like, oh yay, we got the War Machine armor and. Let's fix with it. And the person who makes it bad is when you have AIM coming in. Pardon me, not AIM. That's Iron Man 3. When you have Justin Hammer coming in and duking it out and trying to make it something greater than it is, and how it's like the sleazy senator, or even, you know, at the end of this most recent episode, what was that supposed to be the president, head of the DOJ? No, because he said on behalf of our commander in chief.
Yeah, I think that's the DOJ.
Yes, there's a DOJ seal. So is that the Attorney General? I don't know, but like, why does the Attorney General in charge of this? But once again, it's like, oh, we can hate those people because, like, hating politicians, hating bureaucrats, that's hating rich industrialists. That's everybody's job. Everyone could do that. But choosing to say, oh, I, you know, dislike this sergeant, maybe a corrupt general. You can go to like someone higher up. You know, if you look at Hulk, and you just feel like, oh, you know, I really hate Thunderbolt Ross. But the rest of the military guys, they're cool because it's a fun, cool place, and you get to meet an Avengers if you enlist. So.
And even in WandaVision, right? The villain is not the government; it's a private-run kind of thing. And you'll notice that the people that help out Monica are wearing Air Force uniforms. Like,
yeah,
I don't know. It just makes me. I hate that the military uses this stuff as recruitment.
Yeah, tactics. I think one of the
That's
other
the thing
issues
that bothers me the most.
One of the other issues I found as well is that like a significant amount of these characters were written as like military characters, like a lot, but specifically the Air Force. Like if you think about it, you got like
and changing Falcon's backstory to make him an Air Force pilot, or not pilot, but Air Force paratrooper, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and so there's these elements where they retcon it, but also there's like a huge amount of characters in the Marvel universe that actually do have military ties, which I just assume Stanley loved the Air Force because he thought planes were cool, I guess.
You know? But it was very popular in the 40s and 50s to be in the Air Force.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Like, and yeah, that's the thing where you have to like juggle those elements. And I guess it's interesting there as well. I really do hope, I have faith in that it won't just be an advertisement, but I do understand those elements as well. But now be a bad time to tell you that this episode is sponsored by the US Armed Force.
They were advertising on Twitch a while back, so I wouldn't put it past them.
Oh God!
Just a little scroll on the bottom.
And I want to make it abundantly clear: I do not hate people in the military, because I know that some people can like misconstrue that. I am not a fan of the military as an institution because I had an overwhelmingly negative experience with it, and I think that the military lets the people in it down a lot, and that's where this kind of like anger is coming from. I don't like dislike active duty like service people and veterans or anything. I just want to make that like abundantly clear.
And another thing that was pointed out was the whole the flag smashers and how their sort of core arc happens to be unified borders being a problem. But this is one of the things where I'm like, I appreciate the anxiety, but it's episode 1.
Yeah.
And the writer has actively said that there is more to this.
I do think it's a little yikesy. The Flag Smashers having red, I don't know if you know about this, but the Flag Smashers having red handprints on their faces. That's a thing that protesters do for missing and murdered Indigenous women.
Okay, well, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so that is yikes at best.
That's the labeling.
Yeah, ignorant and a little bit yikesy at best, and real bad at worst. Like if they, I don't know enough about the Flag Smashers in the comics, or if they're even a thing in the comics, because I don't read Captain America.
In the comics, it's one.
Yeah,
but they've sort of reorganized it as just like institution, as organization. The way that Malcolm Spellman, the writer of the show, has spoke out in terms of before the premiere. He did a really great interview with Screen Rant and basically talked about how the show doesn't have one villain. The show has different villains, and all of these different villains believe they're the hero. And it isn't like a generic, I'm the good guy. Like they have reasons for thinking what they're doing is right, and they will actively go out and tell you why they think they're right. And he said one of the best things about this 6-hour long show is that he gets to present those arguments, and that Sam and Bucky will actually, his words were, they will actually go, do you know what, maybe they're not wrong.
I think it's following the model that Black Panther so perfectly executed, with Killmonger being one of the more sympathetic villains out there, because his worldview is not wrong. Now how he wants to achieve what he wants to, that's where the difficulty, and that's why Black Panther tries to find the appropriate middle ground. And I think that, the MCU looked at that film and was like, wow, okay, this shows that we can have complex villains. I mean, with all due respect to, Malekith, who just wants to make the world black and darkness. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think Malekith gets a horrible rap. I think he's got some good moments, but I mean, it's good to see, villains that, like you said, think they're doing the right thing and make the hero question their own motives.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And that's why I'm really excited about the Flag Smashers, because I feel like that is going to be different. The whole situation of the blip and how, obviously the reason why they thought the world without borders before everyone came back, everyone was actually helping people out. I feel like that will be a thing that will help change the MCU for better. But hopefully that's something that.
There's a really interesting thing. It's like the people who came back, who were like blipped and came back, for them it was like a second.
Mm-hmm.
For everybody else, it was like 5 years of collective trauma.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes sense. You even get when Hayward in WandaVision is like, yeah, you weren't here for the last 5 years. I mean, he's a dick, but like
Yeah.
if somebody else was making the point, maybe it would have hit a little different. But it's like, yeah, like 5 years is not a short time, you know?
And it's not just, yeah, like you said, it's not just, oh yeah, 5 years. Like people remarried, people.
Yeah, like, imagine like you are married, your partner disappears, you move on because 5 years is an acceptable time to move on, and then your partner just comes back. Like, what do you do in that situation?
Yeah, that we call that the gay Joe Russo situation.
Oh man, God bless you.
My favorite character.
He's looking after us. Oh yes.
He's
but we have a good friend who loves gay Jay Russo. Absolutely. Yeah. Just tell him how great character that is, and he'll totally agree with you.
Oh yes, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, I think it's funny though, the whole like how did different people react to the past 5 years? How the MCU is giving us such a wide array of interactions. Like that's why I love Spider-Man: Far From Home so much, because it's teenagers dealing with it, and like, oh, this while we all blipped away, this guy grew up hot, and like, but that's just something that like kids in 15, 16, 17, that's what they'd be talking about with it, you know. And so that's why it's lighthearted, and then we get to have, well, here's the serious aspects of it that, you know, we see Monica in WandaVision missing the death of her mom, and now we're seeing, you know, Sam and Bucky trying to find their place within all this, and how, you know, everything. A big collective trauma event like that, and I'll be honest, like the one that we're all living through right now with the ongoing nature of COVID-19, though of course we're getting closer to the green with vaccine, everyone's going to react to it differently, and Marvel is showing everybody react to it differently. And nothing is more like, I saw somebody say, oh, I love this show because we're finally seeing a gritty, I did air quotes, I don't know if maybe the camera, gritty reaction to the blip, and that somehow makes it feel more real. And if that's what it takes for you to associate with it, that's great. But I don't think that's any more or less real than how a bunch of high school kids dealt with it. So,
yeah, exactly. I definitely agree with that. And I think,
like we see with like Monica, like her reaction to it is to help people, help Wanda specifically, because she understands what she's going through. Where Hayward decided he was just going to shoot at children, apparently.
Whatever way you want to cope. Sometimes you got to help out someone else dealing with a mental health crisis.
We're not endorsing shooting children on this podcast.
But they weren't.
That's where I put my foot down.
He knew all along. They were just figments of her imagination. Doesn't count.
I was going to make a joke, but I'll leave it till we go after the camera. But yes, obviously we don't support that, just to clarify.
Yeah, no, absolutely no. Hayward's a bad guy.
We get canceled on Twitter for being pro-child killing.
Pro Hayward. People were doing that though, which is what's fucked up. But anyway, we talked about WandaVision. That's in the past. But I think what's interesting is, like you said, it's not just personal stories. It's the way that, because it's implied the whole world sort of came together, and basically borders didn't really matter anymore, which is arguably something that we could be doing in real world, and how, you know, waving a flag isn't really that really important. And we do see that everyday situations. There was a journalist the other day on BBC News who was told off for liking a tweet about the British flag being stupid. Liking a tweet. So you can see why. I do think Sam will actually come to understand why these people feel this way, and will help them. And I don't think it will be like well, you're wrong, that's it. I think it will be something a bit more complex than that, which I'm glad, because we've seen the effects on him as a black man in America. Like, yes, the blip has, you know, changed the way things are working, like banking, but also I think that the intonation in the storytelling is that they're being more strict towards people now, but there's probably a racial element within that itself as well.
Absolutely.
I really appreciated that the show went there. Like there's a line his sister says, like, yeah, this always happens to people like us, right? This always happens to us. And I was like, okay, Marvel, I appreciate that you're actually, because that is a thing that happens.
Yeah, because the writer of the show, Malcolm Spellman, is a black man, and he said that he came into this and it was like, I'm gonna go for this. I have to, like, I can't just stand back and like not go into it. And he said Anthony Mackie would not have worked with him if he didn't go for it either. Like, they were both combined together to make sure it was a real story. I
think the amazing thing about it too is it showed that banker wants to take a selfie with Sam, right? But it's still not enough to get him alone. Right?
He saves the universe.
He respects Sam, right?
Yeah, it's just like when you see, the white establishment interact with pro athletes.
Yeah.
LeBron James, in the eyes of the, white capitalist society we're in, exists to play basketball and for us to admire how he plays basketball. The moment he tries to do anything political, it's like, shut up and dribble. Even when he gave all that money to open up that fantastic school in Akron, they're like, oh, he's doing it. There was this whole idea that, oh, there's no way he's doing that selflessly. He's, putting himself first to increase, his brand to sell more merchandise. That's what people were talking about. There's like a belief, oh, you can't be esoteric because, frankly, most of the people in charge aren't esoteric in that way, nor helpful. So they can't believe that if somebody has the same opportunity, they do the same thing. And there's such a long history in this country of using current events or major happenings as an excuse to keep racist systems still alive, And so that's why he's like, oh, well, everything's been different since the blip happened. We're being a lot more stingy with our loans. That's exactly what happened in 2008 after the housing crisis. Banks obviously pulled in a lot of cash and weren't necessarily approving people for loans as they used to. But the first groups of people when that happened were white people, and people of color were not getting approved by the banks, and the banks would cite, well, look what happened in 2008, or the same thing happened after 9/11, not even touching the all anti-Muslim sentiment that was occurring at the time. So there's a long ongoing history in this country, and frankly, the entirety of the world,
Yes.
So.
Yeah, and I did appreciate how they tackled that. That guy is definitely the MCU universe equivalent of the douchebag John McKell character from Spider-Man 2. I don't know if you guys had the exact same thoughts, where I was kind of hoping that, like, Sam's sister's like, but we do get to keep the toaster, right? I'm sorry, you have to go alone. Yeah, I thought that was such a great scene. And like we said, like, they really are going for this with, like, talking about race and identity and what it means to be Captain America, and how, I mean, the whole crux of that final shot in the show is Sam doesn't feel like he's, like, it's not like he doesn't feel like he's worthy for the shield. I feel like he just doesn't see him like the shield is Steve. It's Steve's identity, and he feels like he cannot take on that. So his current idea of how to best move forward is to help keep Steve's memory alive by giving it to the Smithsonian. And it's definitely inferred that they are under the appreciation that he's only okay giving it away because they're going to display it in this museum piece.
And then they give it to a white guy. It's like Steve chose Sam. He didn't choose Bucky. He chose Sam, and that's really, like, important. And they didn't even ask him. They went.
Not only did they give it to a white guy, they had picked out someone to be this new Captain America.
Exactly.
They had in advance. They had to have done it in advance. Designed a suit. They had to have in advance promoted, like, made marketing materials, presumably while Sam is delivering that speech, which included Rhodey, which I really did appreciate.
Yeah, I was so happy to see Rhodey,
because it's such a, there's so many facets to that whole relationship. One, there's the whole sort of, not, I know people keep saying, oh, they, like, why do they talk to each other? They don't like each other. It's like, that's not the case.
They were on the Avengers together.
They were on the Avengers together.
And they're the Air Force guys.
They're Air Force guys. It's because of the whole scene in Civil War where they're fighting and he gets, attacked by Vision.
Yeah, that was more Vision's fault than Sam's.
Yeah, and also, literally what happens is that when Sam disappears, we actually get to see War Machine call out for Sam.
Yeah, I think that's such. I talked about this actually on the most recent episode of the One and Done show because we're talking MCU Phase 1, even though that doesn't happen until Phase 3. But the relationship that the two of them have is stellar. And that little bit there, that little under 5 seconds of Rhodey calling out Sam's name out of not just like, oh, he's the only one whose name hasn't been called out yet, but I'm genuinely looking for my friend who's, been through so many similar experiences. And what I loved about Rhodey being there and talking to Sam about passing on the mantle is that Rhodey had that mantle for a bit in terms of being the face of America when he got to be the Iron Patriot. And that, which I think that's a very clever way to introduce the Iron Patriot, as much as I adore the Dark Avengers, Norman Osborn Iron Patriot. But that whole, conversation, you could feel some of Rhodey's guilt. Like, when I had the opportunity to be the red, white, and blue face, it failed desperate. Just a disaster.
Misused. It was misused by corporations. Yeah.
And so, like, that's why he's not saying, "Oh, maybe I should do it." No, but he wants to see, a Black Air Force veteran like himself, give it a try to represent America in a way that he was unable to due to forces that prevented it.
There's also this really interesting similarity between their two characters. They have both just lost somebody very important to them.
Yes, and they're both practically the new version of that.
Yeah, and they're both gonna have people being like, "Are you gonna take up the mantle?" Right? Spider-Man: Far From Home was like that, but I imagine that Rhodey, and hopefully we'll get this in. I forget that Rhodey's getting a TV show. Hopefully, maybe we'll get some of this in Armor Wars, but they're probably both gonna have people being like, "Are you the next Iron Man, or are you the next Captain America?"
And there's gonna be a debate about this because I do love War Machine as his own character, and that suit is such a great design. But as we all know, in the comics, Rhodey becomes Iron Man, and I think that it would be a really cool opportunity for him to take on that role. Personally, I know obviously we've got Ironheart coming out at some point in the future. I like to think that she's on her own sort of character and like the same scale as Peter and the kid with the potato gun, Harley.
Oh yeah, Harley.
From Iron Man 3.
The kid that nobody knew who he was in Avengers Endgame.
That's my proudest moment. I was like, "Hey, potato gun kid."
No, I loved being able to. I saw somebody on Twitter be like, "Who was that person?" I was like, "Kid from Iron Man 3." Like, I immediately was like,
"Rap air horns blare."
Duh. Yeah, so it's really cool it's really cool to see them both deal with grief, and obviously, like, Rhodey has a really interesting perspective as well because Sam wasn't there for the 5 years, but Rhodey was. So he's lived through that. So I feel like he's a great. If he appears in this episode, I do think he will come back in the series, and I feel like he'll be a great person for Sam to talk to about the, what it was like to live those years. Maybe he's the one who he talks to about the Flag Smashers. And it's like, no, you don't understand. Like, this is what it was like back then. Because we talk about. We talk about, it was horrible during those 5 years. I think a great representation is like Scott Lang's house and that driveway, that whole street looks abandoned, and it's terrifying. Like, you think people were at that length where it's like, like that must be really scary to see. And I thought it'd be interesting if we sort of go through Sam and then go to Bucky. So I just want to sort of wrap up a little bit with Sam in terms of the whole idea of the Avengers and money.
People are so mad about Tony Stark again. I saw that he was trending on Twitter, and I was like, why? And then I was looking at it, I'm like, really? Sam was dead for 5 years. For all intents and purposes, he was dead.
Yeah.
And people, like, they were only both alive at the same time in the middle of the largest battle they'd ever been in. It's not like Tony's talking to Friday in the helmet, like, quick, update my will.
Updating will, sir.
Buy that boat and give it back to the family,
Can I just say, like, I know this is off topic, but I put a tweet about this the other day, and I think I had like 4 likes, and it made me just like, this is a really niche thing, but I really love the way Friday says Bucky's name in Civil War, which is like the approximation of one James Buchanan Barnes. Like,
I love Friday.
She's great. I don't know what's going to happen. What happens to Friday? They just bury it with
Pepper
Tony.
probably has.
We're
Their
going
house is probably
to.
run off that, right? Their like lake house thing.
Oh yeah, maybe. Yeah, I suppose so.
Yeah, but yeah, where was Friday's mainframe? I guess probably in the house. He probably didn't keep it in the Avengers facility since he left that.
Oh, I hope not.
Well, that'd be saddest off-screen death in anime history, right there.
Oh no! Multiple contusions, sir.
Yeah, I'm just mad. Like, people get so mad at Tony Stark for existing, and it's just like, I get it. A lot of people don't like his character. I'm one of the people that very much loves his character. But like, I'm just like, really? We're blaming Tony Stark for this?
Yeah. Although I do have some issues. Like, they talk about like the money issues beforehand as well. Like, I think it was kind of an issue beforehand. So I can understand why people are like, come on, Tony. He gave him free housing, I guess.
And paid for all their gear and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I
just thought it was funny more than anything else.
Oh,
like, Tony Stark is dead. Why are we blaming him for this?
No one else can fight him. Everyone turns into Mysterio when it comes to Tony. I did think it was really interesting in terms of I was just thinking about Morgan Stark and those 3 of them at that, like, because all of Team Cap kind of got fucked over.
Yeah,
if you think about it, because I know because people that's the reason why people were mad at Tony. I just remembered because I was like, why is it? Because Team Cap were on the run for like 2 years, right?
Yeah, they were like on the run between like Civil War and Infinity War, I think.
That's why I think Sam has got like no money either. It's like because Tony branded them a traitor for the wrong reason.
That wasn't really Tony's. I mean, we could get into a debate about that. That wasn't really Tony's fault. Like, Tony did what he had to do.
You could have let them out of the prison.
I'll be honest. I can't talk about Civil War because I do not like Captain America and I like Iron Man. So regardless of their
yeah, Hughes. No, I love Tony Stark. I just think
Jack Hughes. What is this? The Leapers on the call now?
Yeah, leaping. Madison J in the comments. Oh yeah, by the way, if you want to ask us any questions, have any theories that are non-spoilery, please ask us in the chat. Madison J says, "Was the show saying that Sam didn't get paid now for being an Avenger, or did Sam say he never got paid for being an Avenger?" I think the idea is that it wasn't like he had a set salary. I think the idea is that he lived at the Avengers compound, and I'm sure Stark filled out the fridge with like the best food.
And he probably got paid like a stipend, right? But then he was on. Yeah. They were on the run for.
And I think that's what that goodwill comment is. He said it's a lot of goodwill and kind people. I think I'd love to see what his 2 years on the run were like, because they were probably staying up with people, staying at people's houses, moving around with just the kindness of people who kind of like an adventure RPG. Oh, you did this quest for me, because they were not just out there fighting Tony or running away from Tony. They were probably still saving the day in their own way. And getting little rewards and things for their...
It's heavily implied that Tony wasn't looking for them, and I imagine Vision wouldn't be looking for them either. Vision would probably be told like, "Hey, go and find them," and he's like, "Yup," and then he finds Wanda, and he's like, "No, I have no idea where any of them are."
I think legally, though, I think legally every country is like security forces or whatever is like probably bound to arrest them. So yeah, I don't think Tony was actively. I mean, probably Steve. I feel like Tony would have to go after.
But at the end of Civil War, he gets a call from Ross and hangs it up. When Ross is like, "Hey, they're out. Go find them," and then he hangs it up. He's like, "Sorry, I can't hear you."
Steve specifically, I think he would have wanted to find Bucky. But there's 2 years in between, which is why he isn't like, "I'm not going to work with you, Captain America." There's 2 years for him to sell that, but I can appreciate during that time why he might not want to go. And I'm not blaming him. I'm saying he has a good reason to. also I like the idea of like Sam at Tony's funeral and being like it's Sam, Wanda, and Bucky, and like little Morgan's there with Pepper, and like my condolences, and like Sam goes on his knees and goes, "I'm really sorry that I murdered your grandparents. I'm trying to make amends." Morgan's like,
I am not the Winter Soldier. I am James Buchanan Barnes. I will not hurt you.
It is so funny that the three of them are like standing next to each other at Tony Stark's funeral, and the camera pans over, and Bucky's just like,
"It's like, where's my?" They're like, "Where are our checks? We just saved the galaxy again. You're welcome." But yeah, I did kind of feel bad for Team Cap. Like they got screwed over. I think. You know, poor Wanda and the shot collar. Sam.
Wanda got it the worst. If you look
Wanda
at
got it the worst. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sam. Yeah.
Poor Wanda. That's a subtitle for the MCU. Poor Wanda.
Madison says, I mean, Sam did say in Infinity War when Rose asked them about them being on the run, the hotels were exactly 5 stars. Yeah, there you go. Bucky.
I feel like we should probably talk about Bucky.
Bucky is one of my favorite characters of all time. So getting to delve into him was incredible. And one of the most underrated elements of the episode, which I haven't seen many people talk about, I've seen a few reactions talk about it, is the King himself. If you're going to talk about how this show is a sequel to the Captain America trilogy, and in that vein, yes, there's the Russo brothers element, yes, there's the Joe Johnston element, but the thing that I think really cements the latter 2 films the most is the music. And Henry Jackman coming back for the show is so good. So when you have those really deep moments, which we'll get into in a second, but specifically with Bucky, when you hear that Winter Soldier theme, it hits.
Henry Jackman is really interesting to me because the Captain America movie, so I'm going to go on a musical tangent for a second, fair warning. The Captain America themes are the only Marvel movies that utilize a motif throughout their... You have the Captain America theme that's a da 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 da.
Yeah.
Right, and they're the only ones, to my knowledge, and from what I can remember, that actually like utilize a motif correctly in terms of film scoring. So like when you think about Star Wars, you have the Luke's like binary sunset da 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 like that, and that comes up in different moments for Luke's character, right? So it invoked, because John Williams is good at his job. But a problem with the MCU is that there's no, except for the Avengers theme and I think the Cap theme, there's no solid motif for any of the characters.
There is one that transfers over characters. I just picked this up the other day. The theme they give Loki in the first Avengers, they give to Thanos in Infinity War, and they just make it bigger.
Yeah.
And so, so I think that's the, yeah. So because I've been rewatching everything right now, and so in Avengers, like, oh shit, that's Thanos' theme right here. And so it's funny that it was Loki's theme first in that context, and then
how does that go? Is that the one that's like, because there's like Alan Silvestri, there's a really good recurring themes in the Avengers films, which I'm so retrospectively like angry that we didn't get to have Alan Silvestri do Age of Ultron, because it might have made the film a little bit more better. Like I really wish we had him do all 3, because the soundtracks for Infinity War and Endgame are so good. And there is like recurring themes from the Avengers films, like you said, like the Avengers, obviously the Avengers theme. Is there any other recurring thematic things? I guess you
can't. Madison J put in the chat, Ant-Man's theme does do that too, but it's not as the problem. The problem with
sorry,
hero themes is they're so forgettable. The one exception is like the Avengers theme, I think, and Captain America's theme is very like evocative of his. But like Iron Man doesn't have a motif, like Thor doesn't have a motif, like a recognizable one anyway. And it's
Asgard does.
Yeah, it does, but it's just kind of
only like, an establishing shot. Like here's Asgard, camera pans up, the big horns blare.
In my opinion,
Sorry.
In my opinion, there's nothing as instantly recognizable as like Star Wars music, right? Or any of those trilogies. And like the Ant-Man theme does carry over, but it's not a strong melodic thing. It's more of a background piece.
Yeah.
So it's like dun, 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 dun. I forget how it goes. See, exactly. And unless you listen to a lot of like MCU tracks on Spotify, like you're not going to pick it up. The Captain America theme is one of the only ones I think that, and the Avengers.
I do adore the Ant-Man theme. Like, I think the reason why I have it so in my head is because I just love replaying that scene where he runs out to the car and he gets in and it's like, did you get your jukes and your juice box?
Juice box and a cheese stick?
Doctor Strange has a theme. I don't know if it's...
that like kind of harpy sounding.
Yeah. That's used in Doctor Strange. I don't know if it's used in Avengers, but it is used in WandaVision.
Yeah, but the problem with most of those is they're not binary sunset, right? If we're going back to the Star Wars analogy.
No, yeah. Well, like if you played it, you were like, oh yeah, that's Ant-Man.
There's actually a really good video on this, talking about why the Marvel Cinematic Universe music is so forgettable, and it's basically how they score films before the score is done. They put in temporary soundtracks from different movies, and oftentimes a director who doesn't really like care about the musical element of it will be like, you just make it sound like the temp track, so you end up getting these like incredibly boring. Like Spider-Man's good. Yeah, that's because I think Michael Giacchino does that.
Yeah, and he did Doctor Strange as well, right?
I think so. Yeah, and Michael Giacchino is good at his job. So
he's one of my favorites. Yeah,
one of my favorite recurring themes that you see in this first episode is when they introduce the new Cap, U.S. agent. They play the Captain, not the main Captain America theme, but the Captain America theme that plays in the movie The Winter Soldier. That's got all the heavy strings in it, except they lower it a bit and they make it sound more ominous. I don't think they change it to a different key, but it's a little slowed down there. It's the one that goes. They take that and it's slowed down and made like, oh, this guy's going to be a villain, maybe, or at least not close to the heroes. But we recognize that it's just like the mantle of Captain America has been corrupted. We are going to corrupt this recognizable tune of. I saw someone once call this theme back when the movie came out. It's Captain America's spy movie theme, and so because that is the spy movie one. So here's the corrupted Captain America spy.
I love that. Madison says, "I really love Wanda's new theme, and I hope it shows up in the new Doctor Strange." I adore Wanda's theme.
All of the music in WandaVision is just amazing.
Again, great creators, like great music creators, and like
I was watching an interview with the people who did, I forget their names, but the people who did all of the TV intro. I'm not sure if they scored the whole show. I can't remember, but they did. I think no, they did the TV intros. Yeah, and how they hid like a motif, the da 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 da, and like all of the TV themes and stuff.
Yeah, it's just so good. But yeah, like the theme wise, I just want to go back to that Winter Soldier. It's so subtle, so haunting, and so scary. And I think one of the best choices in this episode is to reintroduce Bucky in the flashback, because we have to remind ourselves that this was a violent part of his life. And I think what's interesting and what is pretty clear from how Sam is saying it is that he's not distinguishing himself as a different person. He is saying, I was the Winter Soldier. And that's something that also Malcolm Spellman, the writer of the show, talks about. He says, Bucky, like you can say to Bucky that he didn't do those things because he was brainwashed, but he remembers every name, he remembers every person he killed, he remembers every time he did it. He thinks that part of him has to have been part of that to remember it, which is what's obviously part of it's the most saddest part of that character's journey, is that he has to deal with all that pain and hatred. And I think it's a really great way to reintroduce him in that horrible context and then see him at his most vulnerable. It reminded me a lot of the speech in the Winter Soldier when Sam talks to Steve about coming home from the war and having to like live on the floor and not having and the mattresses not feeling weird, like not feeling comfortable, not being used to that. And we just like Bucky says, like he woke up from 90 years of war practically, like non-stop. So it's interesting to see that element. I really love the mental health factor in terms of Bucky. I know people were getting very angry at the therapist, but I thought
I like his therapist a lot.
I liked her a lot.
I think a lot of people who maybe haven't really experienced therapy will be like, what a mean therapist. Sometimes you need your therapist to be like, hey, dumbass, look, like you need to put this into perspective. I really liked the therapist.
And I really liked her approach as someone who has also been in the military. And her comment of like, you don't understand, like being alone by yourself like that is the most personal hell. I thought that was a really great line. I really did like that moment. And then we get introduced to Yuri. You're like, oh, this is great. Like my immediate thought was, is this like a guy that I was trying to work out the age. I was like, is it like a kid that he might have known around the neighborhood?
Yeah, and it's just a neighbor. He's just a neighbor, right? And introduced here, it just happens to be his current neighbor, and they decided.
I thought it was going to be like, like either like he'd be like, oh, it's Bucky. I remember you. I looked up to you, or like, you know, like, oh, you. Maybe Bucky's like, oh yeah, that was my grandfather or something like that, and it's so much worse. It's so much worse. And you really do feel for him. You really feel for his like dilemma there. And when did you guys realize that the guy from the flashback was his son?
I think as soon as he mentioned the word son, and he was like, my son loved this, because the camera focused on that guy way too much to just be like, oh, Bucky's killed plenty of innocent bystanders before, I'm sure. Yeah. So, this one, the fact that we're looking at him
they also
very in depth.
They also focus on the son in that bit at the beginning where he is the Winter Soldier, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, that's his dad. That sucks. Okay. Madison J put in the chat, personally, I cared about Bucky more after this first episode than I did watching the movies. Yeah, me too. I never have been on the Bucky Barnes train. A lot of that had to do with the fandom. I just got like exposed to I think the worst Bucky Barnes fans, and I was like, don't want anything to do with that. But
you put that on ice.
Yeah, but this episode made me care more about him, I think, than I ever really have before.
Yeah, he's one of my favorite characters because of that whole idea of him. He is like Steve, but if Steve woke up in the wrong place. He is what, like, it's just so. I just think it's so interesting. Like, and I'm really glad they actually did delve into the context of like what happened. If they just like Bucky's just walking around the street and that was it, I'd be really like frustrated. The fact that they actively said like he's going out there, he's doing amends, and he's also been pardoned, I thought was really interesting.
Was he kicked out of Wakanda, or did he leave on his own accord? I'm curious why he left, and maybe we'll find out more of that. But
I think the idea is that he was only in Wakanda to make sure his brain wasn't like dangerous, and I feel like
all of the programming was out of his brain. I think
the programming was gone, and they were watching out for him, and then he was recovering from that, and that it just happened to coincide with the fact that Thanos was invading. So it's like, here's an arm, we got to deal with this.
But yeah, Wakanda's open to the world. I'm just curious, because he said that was the one time I felt a degree of peace. Why he didn't choose to stay there?
Maybe
afterwards to go back to there.
Maybe he associates some bad memories with it, especially with like the dusting. And I'm sure there's some like villagers or like people that he actually grew to know that might have died in that skirmish. So maybe that was like something to do with it as well. And there's like a war zone, I guess. You don't want to stay around a place where you've fought. Maybe you're scared that Rocket wants his arm still. He's like, I'm going to peace out. My headcanon is that he's one of the 10 contacts in Bucky's phone. Is Rocket Raccoon.
Oh, let me find this. Hang on. My friend was texting me about this.
It's a good thought exercise, naming the 10 contacts.
I think it's Sam. I think it's Rocket Raccoon. One thing I was interested by, and I don't know if they'll delve into this more than what they did, but I thought it was really interesting when she said, I think that was the waitress on the date. Do you want to get this out? You guys first, Ash, because I know.
Sorry, my friend Abby, who is on PonderVision, she says, I like the idea of Bucky having one to be one of his 10 contacts and getting weird ass glitchy texts from her and just assuming that it's some sort of text lingo he doesn't understand. And I was like, yeah, she straight up sends him one that says she just has twins and he thinks it's like modern slang for having a bad day or something. Oh man, hate when that happens.
He's just was lol.
I think that's perfect.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, we got with Wanda, Sam, Rocket. I guess Steve. Does he have? Oh yeah, that's so sad.
Dial to the moon.
His therapist.
His therapist is one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So there's 5. I don't think he'd have his neighbor's phone because they're next to each other, so he doesn't need that. Maybe Shuri.
Maybe Shuri, yeah.
Yeah, just to check in on
she just sends it. She just sends him memes constantly.
Yeah, outdated memes, but memes nonetheless.
Yeah.
She bullied him to shaving his hair.
Okay, I will say though, Bucky looks infinitely better with short hair.
Okay, people have been riding this long hair train for ages, and I was like, do you know what? I'm gonna take a brave breath and just go for it. And I tweeted, look, Bucky looks so much better with short hair, and everyone agreed. So I was like, do you know what? I'm happy, and I think one of my favorite elements about his arc is how they reintroduce concepts of rehabilitation and how the character's mindset is via imagery and physical appearances. And to me, even though people I've seen people before the show came out like, oh, I wish he had his long hair. For me, the short hair symbolizes it's James Buchanan Barnes. And also the jacket. The jacket is pretty much a modern day version of the one he wore in the 40s as part of the Howling Commandos.
I will just say I did really love Bucky being like a boomer father. Like, I don't understand online dating.
Well, there are some weird pictures up there.
Yeah. People are like, why? What was he talking about? Like a tiger? I think my assumption was that it means like Snapchat filters.
Yeah. No, that was the impression.
Yeah. Because I saw some people like, who's the tiger in the Tinder picture? I'm like, no, it's not like what's the name from Tiger King? It's a filter.
Mm-hmm. I was hoping he was going to say something about like, people show too much skin these days. You got to cover up and have a little more modesty.
See, that's a little bit too much, I think.
See?
But I also love the idea of like we know that Bucky was like good with the ladies in the 40s, but him just being like completely perplexed by modern dating, which like same buddy.
We've all been there. One thing that really interested me though is that, and I don't know if they're going to follow up on this or whether it was just an off the cuff comment. I really hope it's not, because it reminded me a bit of like the whole Peggy situation in The Winter Soldier. Is the idea that I think it's the waitress, the girl that he's goes on a date with. She asks him if he has any family members, and he goes, "I used to," in terms of his parents. And then he says, "I have a sister. I had 4." But the way he says, "I have a sister," and then he said, "I had 4." Do you think that one of his sisters is alive?
Maybe.
If she was a younger kid when he was like in the military.
Mm-hmm. Oh no, yeah, like my grandfather, his older brother, who's no longer with us, he served in World War II, and my grandfather was born in 1940, so it's very possible.
So like maybe, I think that would be interesting, like because we don't really get to see much about Bucky's family or his history. Like he's so alone, and I think like that would be an interesting concept. Maybe that's one of on his list. Also, I don't know if you know. Did you notice the list? Like who was on the list?
No, I didn't. I didn't look close enough. There
is a one H Zemo. I was like, I'm looking forward to this. And I'm really interested about what Zemo's doing, because
did Zemo get snapped?
Well, in the official documentation for the show, it references him being at a German prison. So I'm like, did he escape the German prison? Is he still there? Was he snapped? Did he escape that way? And then also, one of my favorite elements was that they were talking about, or the writer was talking about, how Zemo views superheroes as supremacists, as these people who have this unholy power that they've been given and they shouldn't really have, because look what the damage they do to everyone else. And that's why they and in the trailer, he said like they should not exist, which I thought was a really interesting concept. And I am definitely interested to see how he deals with that, especially since the Flag Smashers seemingly seem to be powered, or like super powered. I wonder if we will get a delve into potentially these people, the Flag Smashers, and also US Agent, being connected to the Super Serum Project. Because who's to say that the Super Serum Project didn't keep continuing?
My secret hope, my secret hope is that we get, oh God, what is his name? Isaiah Bradley, right? Elijah or Isaiah Bradley? I can't remember.
Yeah. There's two, right?
Yeah, one is his grandson who's in the Young Avengers.
I think Elijah is the younger one, and Isaiah is the grandson.
Yeah, I think. Yeah.
I could be like totally flipped. They're very similar names, and
Isaiah, I think,
the idea,
Black Captain America.
Black Captain America, right? Yeah. For those who don't know, I think the idea of that being an element, whether it's in this or something in the future, it'd be just amazing.
I think that in the credits you actually do see his name, or like a reference to one of the things.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I wasn't looking super hard.
I think that'd be great. I think the idea is that we will delve into the history and something that maybe Steve didn't know, which is the idea that the US government, it wasn't that, because he mentioned like, yeah, the shield was off ice for like, the shield was not used for all these years. The idea that actually they were attempting to do this stuff. And that ties a bit into the Ultimate Universe as well. Like there was the different Captain Americas that when I don't know if you guys remember the Ultimate Captain America stories, and how I think Red Skull was like one of them. Like it was a Captain America that went crazy and sort of like ripped his skin off and stuff. I like the idea of them like continue to do that, and maybe that's the reason why we see stuff like Bruce Banner. Maybe that's the reason, because that does tie into the Incredible Hulk backstory. And if they are investigating or experimenting on super serum stuff today, that could tie into another show, namely She-Hulk. Because one person who has a bit of DNA with the super soldier serum is Abomination.
Do you think... Isn't She-Hulk just like a blood transfusion? Isn't that how that happens in the comics?
Yeah, she gets shot by a gangster, and then the Hulk's like, oh shit, my cousin got shot. Here's some of my blood. Oh wait, I'm the Hulk. I forgot.
Oh no.
Oh.
Yeah, that's kind of dumb. I'm up for a revamping of that.
So, not to be the WandaVision fan theorists, not to bring these people back up.
I mean,
we all love, but it's fun to do it. But if we're going to talk about super soldier weapons programs, Captain America, Weapon 1, then there's a handful in the middle, and it does make it to Weapon 10, otherwise known as Weapon X. Hello, Wolverine, ladies and gentlemen. This show's bringing the X-Men. That's what's going to happen. Everyone thought it was going to be the one like, oh, House of M. Yeah, no, it's going to be this one's going to bring the X-Men, because Weapon X is going to bring up, because we have all the...
Hey. Look, what are we seeing in Black Widow? We're seeing the Russian Captain America. We're seeing how these different countries do stuff. Do you know who we haven't seen yet? Canada. I think you're right. Reed. I think we're going to see the
Captain
official
Canada. Alpha Force. Probably. That's what it is.
Captain Canada. Yeah. Alpha Force is with Sasquatch and I don't remember the other ones. North Star, I think, was with them briefly.
Yeah. They're not even they've recanonized themselves now as like Gamma Squad or something, like Alpha Force Gamma, because they're dealing with all the stuff from the Indestructible Hulk, which not Indestructible Hulk, the Immortal Hulk. I do apologize. Yeah, I think that would be really cool. And you know what that means?
It's going to be the weapons program.
Deadpool.
We know Deadpool.
There we go.
We do know Deadpool is coming.
Here's a
brings it all together.
Off the cuff remark: if you're looking for a really good book with Captain America in, I recommend picking up by Jerry Duggan, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. It's this Deadpool story in which it combines the Trinity. It's Captain America, Wolverine, and Deadpool, and they're all investigating this thing which ties them together. And I swear to God, when I read this book, I cried my eyes out. Like, it's really funny because obviously it's Deadpool, but it's actually it's got a really big heart and it's really emotional. And the idea is that this person has been sort of drugging Deadpool for years and like taking his body parts and doing stuff to him and wiping his memory so that Deadpool doesn't remember that he has a child. And he goes to find them, and they find out they've been brought into this internment camp, which is used in North Korea by the same guy who's basically taking samples from X-Men and trying to recreate his own mutants to sell to armies. And it's interesting because it's this guy's been involved in Weapon X, and obviously Weapon X was designed to create a new version of Captain America. So all those characters all come together and realize they've got this big connection, and it's funny because obviously you got Captain America as like the strong, like, you know, he's like the straight face. And then you got Wolverine who's like pissed off and like can't be dealing with it. And then there's Deadpool who's like messing around all the time. And then there's like this really, really emotional moment actually that happens where Deadpool is basically like beside himself, like in grief. And you see like Captain America like, come on, son, we have to get out of this. And then Wolverine's like, shut up, like shut up, you don't understand. Like, he doesn't need to hear that right now. It's like, read it. It's really good. If you got Marvel Unlimited, I definitely recommend that book. It's really great. And also, they one of the fun things they did in the lead up to that to build up some back history is they did these parody issues where it was like a flashback, but it was set and designed to look like the era of the comic, like the era of it was in. So like in the 70s one, he's got like Deadpool's got like a giant afro. And he's like he's like bumping into Luke Cage and Danny, and it's such a joy. And the 60s one with Peter Parker, like bumping into Aunt May, like ridiculous stuff like that. It's definitely worth a ride. It's a great book. Just to shout that out. To go back to Sam though, I'm sorry, not to Sam, to Bucky, and Bucky's whole situation. I thought it was a really great way to show how he feels kind of stuck. And people are moaning about this, but I actually do appreciate, and I think that they will, looking back, that this episode doesn't have them together, and that we're seeing them. They're both their paths, and I'm sure next week it will.
You kind of need to see where they're at individually, but think before they can come together.
Yet, but I also do like the idea that Sam isn't, because I was worried that it'll be like, I don't care about this guy. I don't really know him. That's not the case. Sam is still actively texting Bucky to make sure he's okay. Which I think, shows why he should be Captain America, because he's such a great soul and such a great person. I'm really interested, like you said.
I think there's probably going to be, I'm excited for the conversation between the two of them, where maybe Sam is like, why don't you take up the mantle? And Bucky can be like, hi, would you like an alphabetized list
of the people I've killed?
Bucky being Cap in the comics makes sense, right? There's way more history and context there. So when Steve dies and Bucky takes up the mantle, it makes a lot of sense. I don't think it would work as well in the MCU. Sam, with the MCU characterization, it makes the most sense for him to be Captain America.
Also, I'm pretty certain that...
Sorry, a dog came in. Hi, buddy.
I'm pretty sure Bucky would not want to put himself in anything. Like, he's only got his own brain back recently. Like, he doesn't trust himself. He's got that. He's got the Red Ledger. So, I just don't think I don't think he would want to. I think he's going to actively root for, because that's the thing as well. Bucky is Steve's best friend, and vice versa. There is no way that, in my opinion, Bucky would not want to go to the end of the earth to make Steve's wish come true. And I like the idea of him turning on the TV and going, and like he goes, "Meet the new Captain America," and then Bucky's like, "Fuck no, excuse me." like I don't think so. Like puts his arm on, goes out, and puts his coat on. Yeah. So I think overall this episode was just a great sort of introduction to this brand
fantastic
series. Like, what was your favorite moment, Reed, of the episode?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I'll say the moment I most appreciated, which is just the opening sequence. I'm not generally one to pick action scenes as my favorite moment, but I loved it so much because in the MCU up to this point, we have only really seen Sam as the aerial support to something else. I mean, he's the helicarriers that works his advantage. He's going to hop from one to the other pretty easily and fly around shooting people. But it was good to see a flyer engage in a flying battle, like in a dogfight in his own terms. And I thought that was really clever and created to like give the Falcon like his time to show this is what I can do. This is all the cool stuff. When he bursts through the helicopter with the guys trying to rescue and just picks him up and keeps flying by after blowing it up. You know, I think there's a lot of good moments there. So I'd say that's the one that stuck with me the most positive. Like, oh, that's great. Number 2 would be getting Rhodey in there and have Rhodey and Sam have that conversation, and hopefully the one of many.
Yes, I agree. Ash, do you have a favorite moment?
I really liked the therapy scene.
Yeah, me too. I think that might be my favorite. Specifically, I really appreciated the background decor, and it wasn't until someone brought this up. It's spring. It's the winter, it's thawing, and Bucky is coming back. And I really appreciated that sort of subtext and that sort of like nice little nod. It's like I like that, the idea of Bucky going to therapy is a pro thing. It's him becoming himself again.
I really like getting to see a superhero go to therapy. Because Tony definitely needed it in Iron Man 3, but he was like, nah, I'm just going to work through it myself, which never works. It never works.
I'm not that type of doctor.
Poor Bruce. That's one of my favorite things. I like the idea of like Vision now going to see Bruce Banner. And it's just him like in the Hulk, like Professor Hulk. Which again, I know this was like a tangent, but going back to what you were saying about how we're going to see She-Hulk in the MCU, there is no way that storyline can work the same way, because like the whole point is that Bruce Banner, I don't think, has told Jennifer like that he's the Hulk. If he shows up like that,
I think Jen probably knows at this point.
I would think so. I would assume so.
She just sees like somebody take a selfie with the Hulk, and she's like, "Is that Bruce?"
It's like these Zoom calls have been really weird.
He keeps putting filters on his face. I don't know why.
Oh, great! He was gone for 2 years. Yeah, I think the show's started off at a really great point. I think we're going to get into really great themes, certainly the mental health of both our characters. So yeah, I'm really intrigued to see where we're going next. Before we wrap up, I didn't know that Wyatt Russell was Kurt Russell's son.
So is that US Agent? Is that
yeah. So if you look at him now, I'm like, that's Kurt Russell, which is why there was like a viral tweet that went going yesterday with like, who is this? But you can't say like, but it has to be wrong answers only, and it's the picture of US Agent, and I said it's Star-Lord's brother.
That's great,
because technically
we need to, as we get to see more from the show progresses, we have to have a matchup. Who's a better actor, the younger Russell or the younger Cannavale?
I think we might know the answer to that.
We might know the answer to that, unless the younger Russell opens his mouth and we're completely, hi everybody, I'm the U.S. agent. Like, but that'd be funny. So
there's no way that he's going to be on. Like, have you seen this episode of Black Mirror?
He's in an episode. Which one is he in Black Mirror?
He's in the video game one.
Oh, he's got the
the plugging.
The plug-in one. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, he's gonna be definitely better than the younger kind of.
yeah, he's better than what's his name from what's he in again? Mandalorian, right? He was that douche.
Yeah, he plays
douche Render, I like to call him.
Oh my god, everyone's favorite wannabe bounty hunter.
Oh, that guy.
Yeah, that guy.
That's Bobby Cannavale's son.
I cannot remember his first. It is Bobby Cannavale's son. I cannot remember his Jake. It is Jake Cannavale. Yes.
You know,
the source of so many cringeworthy Harry Potter Han Solo mashup memes. How dare you sit where he sit?
Oh my Christ.
Those still like pop up on my like Instagram suggested like at least once a week. That same damn. It's like, okay, yeah, we get it. He sat where Han Solo did, and you don't like him, and you like using this Harry Potter picture. Congratulations. Okay. You're so original. And all the comments are like, OC. I'm like, no, it's not. This has been going around for like 2 years now, man. Shaking my damn head.
Also, if you go back and watch A New Hope, we talked about this in the Imperial Senate podcast commentary when we watched A New Hope. We're pretty sure that Han shit himself in that scene. Because when he leaves that cantina, Harrison Ford has a really weird walk. It looks like he shit himself. Like he has like a weird, like he's like, give the change. It's go back and watch that. You'll never see it the same way again.
Thanks for that.
That's what I'm here for. This is what the show is about. Ruining Star Wars for you. Yeah. Madison J, to wrap up, Madison J says, it will honestly be interesting to go back and see an MCU movie after getting so used to these shows and having seen some people talking about how this is better than doing movies. I think that's interesting. I don't think that getting rid of movies is a good idea.
No.
Because
I think looking at these as solo series or mini series and movies as like event comic books is probably the way to go with it. Right?
That yeah, or like a trade paperback.
Yeah.
For the series.
WandaVision is a trade paperback, and then she'll show up in the event movie that is Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah, and this feels like volume 1 of Sam Wilson, Captain America.
Mm-hmm.
Or like Falcon the Winter Soldier.
It is going to be interesting being like, I do like understand the sentiment of being like, wait, where's like all the character development in this 2-hour movie where tons of things are happening? But like that's how event books are, right? It's like Spider-Man's in, I can't even think of an event, Civil War, right? But he has like his own like mini series and stuff, yeah. Like
with Mephisto.
He's always out there.
Oh, we love that storyline. The most beloved storyline in comic book history is the removal of Mary Jane's marriage to Peter Parker. Everyone loves that storyline. Everyone loves Civil War, the comic book. What a great story. Fucking can't stand it. yeah, I've got it down here, like the schmuck I am.
Yeah, it's on my bookshelf. It's literally within reaching distance. So is House of M, and I hate House of M. So.
Yeah. Like, what if we put everyone in the negative zone? Okay, that's a good idea, Reed.
What if we make Reed Richards more of a dick than he already is?
Oh, man. I hate that, because that's Reed's my name, right? And his name was Reed. I'm like, God, the only famous Reed in fiction is this asshole right here. And, man.
Tell you what, though, it's funny, though, because when Reed Richards, aka the 616, the normal comic book, Mr. Fantastic, is a dick, it's annoying. But when Ultimate Reed, aka the Maker, who is one of my favorite characters of all time, because he's a villain, like when he gets to be a dick, you're like, oh, I love him so much. He's the little cutie pie. I don't know why. Like, are you guys
let him be the dick that he needs to be. Like, don't. I
am a fan of Ultimate Reed Richards because I think it's really interesting to see what Reed Richards would be like without his family.
He's so cool with the big, like, bulbous head.
Yeah.
Oh, I love him. And then it's like you can't make this guy even cooler. And then in Venom, he like put the ultimate Venom suit on. I was like, okay, you win this round. Yeah, I think that's all we've got time for this week. great premiere for Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Have we got anything else we want to talk about before we wrap up?
Madison put in the chat, from hearing from other comic book readers, it sounds like the MCU movies and shows seem to improve upon the actual comic storylines like Civil War and House of M. LOL. Yes. Yeah. Correct.
Apart from Demon in the Bowl, which I think got resolved in one film.
Yeah, but we don't talk about Iron Man 2. It was a different time.
Iron Man 2, I still think is a good film. The craziest fact I found out about Iron Man 2 is one we found out recently, which was that Justin Theroux wrote that film. So the master codebreaker from The Last Jedi wrote Iron Man 2.
My man has a great writing credits, selection of writing credits under his name. He is a funny guy.
That. It's it's ridiculous. And that whole little...
I forgot about the master codebreaker.
Our friend Alden is addicted to this one line from that film, which is Justin Hammer's speech about the ex-wife, the explosive. Mm-hmm. He has this like really ridiculous like description. That's a character I'm really interested to see back again. But I feel like something that's funny, I say funny, is that Iron Man 3, originally people were like, angry at the whole Mandarin reveal. I think retrospectively, the one shot that was meant to solve the solution is arguably more problematic than
Yep.
Good old all hail the king.
All Hail the King is very problematic retrospectively.
All Hail the King though has the greatest post-credit scene because we get to see Justin Hammer with his prison boyfriend.
But that's what I mean. That's the problematic element. It's like, what if Justin Hammer was gay? It's like, what? You brought him back for that? Like, you're not going to bring him back in like Iron Man 3 and be like, oh, I don't know. Then they get, Madison's got a point though. Like, sometimes you have to mismatch these character elements. Like, I'm really appreciative of the fact that they mixed up the Crimson Dynamo and Whiplash, because there's only so much you can do with a fucking whip made of electricity. It's like, yeah, give him a suit as well. Fuck it, why not?
And it's like, I think like the amalgamation of characters is fine. Like Ghost and Ant-Man and the Wasp is infinitely cooler than Ghost ever was in the comics. So it's like,
yeah,
take a cool concept, do something new with it. Like, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, and like again, it's when you have a comic book character that's existed for so long, it's very natural for. Are you okay?
I dropped my phone. I'm sorry.
You became Ghost in that moment. Yeah. You were in front of death. There is a bunch of like character tropes that get repeated. Like we said, like, a good description there was like Crimson Dynamo. Obviously, Iron Man's got like 60 villains that are iron based or have like suits.
Iron Man has like 60 villains that are a variation of like communism bad. Like,
have you ever watched the 60s Iron Man cartoon?
I have, yeah.
Okay, yeah. Retrospectively, not the most woke.
With the benefit of hindsight.
Yeah. Great theme. One of my favorite moments and one of my favorite recurring themes is the idea of them using old classic theme songs in the MCU, though. It's happened twice. Once with Spider-Man and once with Iron Man, which is that in Iron Man 1, when they're given the award out for Tony Stark, they play the 60s theme to the Iron Man cartoon. And then also it's his ringtone. Like
he's just commissioned someone to write him a theme song.
Which is great because the theme song, I love that. I love those like opening 60s theme songs to these shows because it's ridiculous. I think Tony Stark, I can't remember all the lines. Tony Stark, he's with a heart of steel, but Iron Man or jets ablaze, he fights with I don't know. Great theme song, but yeah, I just love those elements. I love the whole stupid subplot of them from the comics of like, I'm not Iron Man, he is my bodyguard. I'm like, okay, Mr. Stark, we believe you. It's like, don't look in my suitcase. Like, what? Like,
I remember when Iron Man had to be plugged into.
That was good stuff. There's the three faces of Iron Man. There's the 60s, I'm going to wear a suit. I am Tony Stark's bodyguard. Wink, wink. Then there's the 90s Iron Man, which is the cartoon where he's like got the long hair. He's like it's like big, like ridiculous. And then every 90s cartoon had like electronic walls to the kazoo, like gigantic electrical like metal walls, and it's like mashing it up, and it's like totally cool. Like the Silver Centurion, everything's blocky. And then I guess you kind of had like the noughties era, which is kind of like extremist. It's like, I'm Tony Stark. I can make an iron suit, but instead it's gonna shoot out of my fingertip.
Yeah, I'm literally Iron Man.
Like, what are you talking about? Like, yeah, turns out
not quite sure how we got on this Iron Man tangent, but I'm here for it.
Yeah, I don't know how did we get? I guess we're talking about the Mandarin subplot.
Yes, that's why. But then how did we talked about Alden's favorite quote?
Iron Man 2,
which is linked
to kind of I don't know, something like that. Anyway,
somehow or another,
6 degrees from Justin Hammer.
That's the power of Iron Man.
Iron Man met Tony Stark in Infinity War. No, sorry. Iron Man met Peter Quill in Infinity War. Peter Quill mentions Kevin Bacon in Guardians of the Galaxy. I win.
All right, there you go.
And on that note, Reed, thank you so much for coming on, mate.
Thank you for having me on. It's been a delight.
Yeah, very hectic episode as we're getting back into the swing of things, and it's been a very long 2 weeks. Where can people find you?
Yeah, so you can find me at RealRDev on Twitter, or Baron Dungannon on Instagram. I'm all over the place, with my various names. You can listen to one of the 2 shows I'm on, either my own show, The Babble Bubble, which is coming off from its break in a week and a half, and or you can listen to the other show I'm on with Nikki Kumar of the Imperial Senate podcast and Alden Diaz of Octo Radio, the One and Done Film Club. Look at One and Done show. We pick one movie from a beloved franchise. Each of us debate which one we think is the one we want to watch, and then we watch it and have an ongoing delightful commentary about it. Sometimes it's moving to the point of tears. Sometimes it's where you're angry and you hate the other people on the line of the call for a bit. We're like, God, Nikki, your take on this movie is horrible. But it's all fun and games. And actually, no, Nikki's takes are always great. It's Alden, because he keeps talking too long. Or me, because I'm talking too long right now. So case in point. So anyhow, yeah, check out all that stuff. If you find me somewhere, you'll probably find me somewhere else. So anyhow, thank you again for having me.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. Ash, where can people find you?
You can find me on the Rogue Podron, on the Rogue Podron podcast. That's not what we call it. It's just Rogue Podron.
It is now. It's the Rogue Podron.
The Rogue Podron, which is a Star Wars book club in the loosest sense of the word. Right now we're going through the 3rd Alphabet Squadron book, whose name I cannot... Victory's Price!
That going that well, is it?
Yeah, it's really going well. I love this book, I promise. Yes, that's at Rogue Podron on Twitter and Rogue Podron wherever you get your podcasts.
Awesome. And you can find me at CMWASHBY and on the Imperial Senate podcast, where we talk about all things Star Wars. You can also check out my Ko-fi link and my Patreon, in which I do shows such as Batman Returned, which will be returning soon, as we talk about we're going to wrap up the 1st season with a retrospective look at the whole Schumacher-Burton films. We're going to talk about the new upcoming release of the 1989 Batman comic, which is supposed to be a sequel to Batman Returns, which is very interesting. Something I've been really looking forward to. Then we're going to basically kickstart into season 2 of the show, which is going to be the Nolan Dark Knight trilogy, which I'm sure is going to have plenty of praise and then plenty of attacking propaganda in the 3rd film. As we all, we have to talk about that. We have to talk about Marion Coillard's great death scene, which... Oh, dear God, I don't know how that made the film. And then at some point, hopefully it'll be soon, but we'll give it enough distance and time. We will have season 3 of the show, which will be the Snyder film. So we'll be talking about Man of Steel, BVS Ultimate Edition, and then Zack Snyder's Justice League, which I am. If you've read my Twitter, you know my thoughts on the film. Not that bad, really.
I fell asleep halfway through. Not that it was bad. I was just like, this is very long, and then
it is very
I fell
long.
asleep.
Yes, it's absolutely.
I
Yeah,
need to go back and finish it.
Did you watch it, Reed?
I haven't. No, I've been on a road trip and actually just got back late last night. So I actually just didn't. I didn't watch the Falcon the Winter Soldier until like 3 hours ago. So that's why it's very fresh in my mind. Yeah. So this is sort of my first conversation to talk about. Yeah, because I driving, I think, 2,000 miles for the past week, which was fun. Crazy. So yeah.
Oh, good then. At least you had, yeah.
I had a blast. Yeah.
So yeah, we'll talk about that at some point. It's going to be a very interesting discussion. It'll be it's a full-on commentary track, which means we're going to have to somehow work out how we're going to do 4 hours worth of commentary. Maybe we'll
Godspeed and good luck, buddy.
We'll have to split into parts. I would imagine that's the case because there's no way we're going to be doing it for that long. Yeah, it's going to be crazy. Very interesting to delve into that. But that's all we've got time for this week. Again, thank you so much, Reed, for coming on. Thank you, everyone, for watching. We'll be back next week. See ya.
Hats off to y'all.